Hey everybody, Nevin here. Today I am joined by Bekah Saltsman, the CEO of Finji, and today we're going to be talking about Overland, which is a post-apocalyptic survival road trip simulator kind of thing. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. So Overland has been in development for 4 years, and it's in the hardcore strategy genre, which a lot of people are like, that's really not for me. But it's like a procedurally generated road trip across post-apocalyptic America, and it is turn-based. So you collect squad and items, and you're going west. And as you go west on these little 9x9 grids, there are monsters that are going to come up, or they're going to be actually on the grids, and you have to get out of those play spaces without dying.
Sounds difficult. How hard are we talking here?
It can be difficult. The cool thing is, we have done a lot with depth of play. So if you don't play hardcore strategy games, aka me, and I actually work on the team, this is just not my genre, you can engage with this game in a really interesting way and have a ton of fun and have these really beautiful close calls. And if you are more into this genre, you can also engage with this game, but at a much deeper level. So yes, it is hard. Yes, you are going to die, but we're really, really obsessed with making dying fun. Partly because of we have an obsession with Pandemic, and we played it for years and years and years. And the idea of playing with this group of people and the board beating you and still being shaking from adrenaline and shouting about how fun it was to have this board beat you. We wanted that same feeling when you play Overland. And it happened earlier today, and I was so excited. A guy came running over to me and told me, let me tell you about these close calls. And I'm like, yes! See it on a show floor. That just doesn't happen.
It sounds pretty awesome is a way to say, I think. So something about Overland is that it seems to be a mishmash of a whole lot of different inspirations and influences. You just mentioned Pandemic. I was reading that The Road is one. What are some of the less obvious or more surprising inspirations behind Overland?
The most surprising that people... So my husband and I are sort of genre film nerds, but we also read a lot of pulp, I guess. There's a book that somehow made it through the Russian censors back in the 70s called Roadside Picnic. And Stalker,
I'm a big fan.
Oh my God, it's so good. But Stalker the movie is actually based on that. And you wouldn't necessarily look at Overland and be like, oh, Roadside Picnic, because it's, Stalker the game. It's not what it is at all. But there's this thing in Roadside Picnic, which is what if aliens or somebody from space just came and dropped trash on Earth? And 100 years later, how do those humans interact with the trash? It's very just sort of black markets and dark and gritty and very human, humanistic. And with Overland, we wanted that sort of same feeling. There's nobody's going to save the world. There's no Bruce Willis in Overland. We don't have superheroes. Even our animation, when we have talked to animators and hired animators, we're what if this is a non-athletic person that has to swing a stick? It's not a buff dude who's baseball bat. It's no. It's what if I'm standing there and I need to hit a monster with a stick? What does that look like? So we want that feeling of vulnerability to come across in a hardcore strategy game. But on top of that, provide a way for people to tell these stories without being overbearing with the story. We allow humans are really funny with their brains. If you give them a little bit of information, they will fill in the rest with their own personal experiences. So all of our characters have a little bit of information, which is also randomly generated. And the way people use that to role play while playing this game is it's incredible. We see it on Twitch streams sometimes, and I'm just you are hitting my heartstrings right now, because that's what I'm passionate about. It's how do I make people feel and not treat these characters on screen they're low poly 3D models, but how do I make people care about them?
That's awesome, yeah. And you mentioned the Roadside Picnic. This is totally a tangent that I'm going in here, but have you seen the Stalker movie?
I have. It's been a while. So I'm one of 6 kids, but I have 4 older brothers. So the cinema that I got to see in the 80s is not normally what you would show a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it since the 80s. Partly because it's so weird. It was it's super weird. And I remember not liking it at all when I was a kid. It's the same thing. I'm like really burning my like nerd cred right now, but like I'm obviously totally seeing Blade Runner, but like I saw it when I was a kid, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I should really rewatch that, because like 5-6-year-old me didn't get it at all.
It's a bit over the head for a kid.
Yeah.
So you mentioned one of the procedural systems, little character bios, and procedural generation is everywhere nowadays. Apart from the character bios, what are some other systems that you guys are using in Overland to set it apart?
Almost all of it. It's like smart procedurally generated. We have this really interesting like level design system where it's kind of everything you see on the screen, like all the items, the terrain, all of that is sort of like itemized kind of as we call them set pieces. And we decide what kind of set pieces are going to be allowed on each level, because that affects difficulty. For example, we have, like, depending on how much gas you expend, like gas is sort of the currency in the game. So like close to the road things have maybe a little bit more high value items, or no, more gas generally, but more monsters. But the more gas you expend, sort of the more high value items. And like all of this is in this procedurally generated system. So we always give you a way to beat a level, but you have to, you need to plan. Like when you walk into a level or drive into a level, you can't just go through and smash and grab. Like you have like this crew of people, you need to actually plan how you're going to move around this space, collect the things that you need, and then get out. Because every time you kill a monster or make noise, more monsters are getting called. They scream and they call more monsters. So yeah, all of our levels are procedurally generated. So like you can play this game multiple times. You're going to have different scenarios. You're going to go to different places. You're going to have different people with different abilities. But we're not mean. All of them are beatable levels.
It's good. That's important. It's kind of a balance.
Very much so. Oh my goodness.
Talking more about systems, have there been any systems that you've tried that just didn't work out, or anything that you've passed on or just not used?
We have a lot of stuff, actually, because I mean, we're 4 years in, so...
Yeah, at this point you're going to have some,
right? Well, when you build, like, so the hardcore strategy genre in general is all systems. Like, the game that we're building is one big giant system, and it looks like absolute shit for so long. Like, because you're building things on top of each other. You're rebalancing all the time. I mean, we've trashed how many UIs at this point? So, like one of the ones that we started out early on was like, well, how do we build relationships between your team? And if bad things happen, you leave people behind. Like, do they not trust each other anymore? Like, can you build up trust depending on like how long you travel together? And they were like, oh, we could. What if they're angry? What if they have like an actual emotional state? And we were seriously gamifying like anxiety. And it was the worst idea we have ever had. We tested it. This was like before we had like our alpha, so it wasn't even out in the public. And we're like playing it, and we're like, wow, this is terrible. Like this is the worst thing we've ever built. So like, how can we make these sort of trust relationships without gamifying mental health? I mean, so there's like this really stupid, like dumb part of it, but also like it didn't work. It was like gimmicky and stupid and trite, and was just like, this is dumb, super dumb. So instead what we do now is like, depending on how long you travel together, it unlocks sort of like the people's special abilities. Some people know CPR, and in order to access their CPR ability, you need to keep them on your squad for longer. Also, we have revenge survivors.
I saw that was added recently.
Oh my god, they're so good.
I'm really excited to play with it.
They've been in for a long time, but we've had them commented out because some of the underlying systems were kind of broken. They weren't working properly. So we've known about them and been waiting to put them in for so long. But like a revenge survivor is one of those things, you leave somebody behind, and now they're going to come and mess with you later. It's not guaranteed, but they end up in like sort of like the revenge survivor bucket. And there's like, because we hide all this stuff, there's a certain percentage of how likely it is that you're going to get a revenge survivor later on in the game. But that all started out from this absolute trash system that we thought was a real good idea back in like 2014 or something.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. And so we've kind of mentioned in passing the alpha that you guys did, and I'm really curious about that. So instead of going with Steam's early access or something like that, you held your own very limited access where people could go and buy like one of 2,000 keys or something like that. Why did you decide to go that route instead of Steam Early Access or anything else that's established? And more importantly, in my opinion, what sort of player response have you seen with regards to feedback on the game and community building?
Yeah, so what we've seen, we knew that we knew we'd sell a bunch of copies if we put the game up on Steam Early Access. Because we're not new to games. Like Adam's made games before, so we knew that if we put it up on Early Access, we would probably have too many people play, and too many people play a really early build that wasn't even close to being done. And we're a tiny team, and I don't have the bandwidth to manage the expectations of 20,000 people descending it down upon me and raining hell upon my everything. When I go to Steam, I need them to interact with a game that I can manage their expectations on, because there's just too many people. So we were trying to find a way to run sort of this limited alpha, where it's just harder to find, and there was no system that was really in place for us to do that. And then Leaf and Amos over at Itch were well, I could build that for you, and we're beautiful. So we opened it up that first month with 500 keys. We sold it was 2015, 2016. We sold 500 keys.
They sold in a couple hours.
Oh my! They sold out in 2 hours or something, which was amazing. But what happened? And thank God we didn't open this to early access. They opened up the game. All of them played the game, and we had thousands of bug reports that weren't threaded coming in, and the game was working. But we get automatic bug reports if there's a crash. It didn't load a particular texture. We know this on the back end because it sends that report onto us. Adam got something 2,000 emails in that first 24 hours. Now imagine if I'd opened that trash up on Steam, and what if I had 1,000 players? What if I had 5,000 players that first day? How could we have dug out of that? And Adam's oh God, I should have done this. And it was a real easy fix. We patched it. We now get our bug reports properly. But that's just one of the tiny things. We've changed the UI, 7,000 times. Adam is very funny about this at this point. Imagine if I had 10,000 players on Steam who are oh God, I liked the old UI 7 months ago, and now I'm gonna whine about it the whole time. And it's just the game's in development and it didn't work. There was something broken about it. We weren't done with the game. We had to add a piece, and now they don't interact well together. So it's easier to manage expectations on a site that people have to choose to participate on, because itch.io mostly they have really cool art games and indie games,
really cool stuff.
Exactly, super cool stuff over there. You wouldn't necessarily find a hardcore strategy game necessarily on Itch, and we were able to sell these limited copies when it started. Now it's open. You can buy Overland right now if you want, but I want people who play my alpha to have they need to play this game now, and if they don't need to play it right now, they can wait until it's out on Steam. But that sort of multiple buy-in is it's been amazing. It's limited the audience, because I wouldn't go on early access because I need the money. I have the funds to develop Overland. I have an alpha program because I need people who are desperate to play this game to play it now, so then I can see if we've totally effed up something. Our UI has been broken before. People can't figure out how to put items on a car. I know how to do it because I developed the game. But having somebody who is not sort of with their blinders on developing something interact with the space. Are people telling stories? Are they coming out of it with close calls? Is the game too hard, or is the game too easy? What about new players? How are they onboarding? All of that stuff is so cool and so useful, especially when you're in the genre that we're in. I would never put Night in the Woods in an early alpha. I wouldn't even put Tunic in an early alpha. But the way this thing has been iterated on and designed for the last couple of years, that's been the most important piece.
Awesome. That's a really great. That's more than I expected to get from that question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been a great, insightful interview. I've had a lot of fun. For people who are curious and want to follow progress on Overland, or follow Finji, or buy the game because they need to have it now after seeing this video, where can they go?
So we're kind of all over the internet. You can go to Finji, finji.co, and that'll have like all of our stuff. There's also overland-game.com, which is where Overland is. You can just search Overland on itch.io and you'll find it. And then on the Twitters, we're kind of all over the Twitters. So you can follow like either me or Adam if you want our personal trash. Or you can follow just Overland Game on the Twitters or FinjiCo, and you'll only get like our game stuff.
Only the professional stuff, right?
Oh yeah, no. My Twitter's total trash. It's like conversations with my kids and pictures of my dogs. So
I also make bad Twitters. Well, thank you again for your time. I hope you have a wonderful PAX, and I'll have this uploaded at some point.